Hey guys, Primal Chaos here, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be looking at Enchroma's new SP lenses. I've been a long time user of Enchroma. I've had a couple of different pairs actually. I've got the indoor ones. These are obviously my daily driver outdoor ones. And for me, personally, I've always had a really positive experience with them. I believe that they do exactly what Enchroma sort of advertises, nothing more, nothing less. But, you know, for me, it's been a bit of a game changer in the way that I interpret color in the world. If you've seen any of my other videos, you'll hear me talking about that fairly often, but this time around, I've got a pair of these new ones. They're the same frames and everything like that, but the difference is the lenses. Apparently, Enchroma has made some kind of a breakthrough. These ones are purported to be about 35% more powerful as far as its effect with the color than the traditional lenses. Whether that affects me as much, I don't know. I'm a strong Pro 10, so for me, I'm already kind of a little bit behind the eight ball, which is why you'll see my lenses are maybe a slightly different color to a pair you might own if you're not a SP lens. You know, my experience, and it's been for many years now, has been that, you know, I put these glasses on and I just forget about them. And then all of a sudden I'm looking at a car and I'm going, boy, that car is just vibrant red. And then I'll take the glasses off and suddenly it's like almost like an olive green or a really muted red. And it's moments like that that you sort of understand what the glasses are giving you. I think a lot of times with the marketing, and again, this is people posting their own videos, and of course, if it's a positive video, Enchroma is going to jump on that and use it as part of their marketing, but they've always been very transparent. They've always said, anytime I've made a video for them, they've always made sure that if I give an opinion, it's a truthful one. If I don't see any difference, they want to see it. They want to know, because they don't want to put it out there in the world that what you're getting is something other than what you are. And that's why I've always been a fan. That's why I've always been a supporter of Enchroma, because they do exactly what they state that they do. They don't cure color blindness, but what they will provide you with, provided they work for you. Everybody's got different vision. There's 3 or 4 different types of color blindness. But in my case, as a strong Pro 10, I find them to be incredibly effective in understanding reds, oranges, determining purples, things like that, as opposed to blues. As any colorblind person will tell you, they're the tricky ones, telling greens from browns, or, you know, like a maroon from brown, or blues from purples, where the lines drawn between orange and red that regular sighted people tend to have way more of a distinction. But for me, you know, I think these do exactly what you would want them to do. And this is, I'm talking about, referring to the ordinary ones. Maybe I'm just one of the lucky ones, I don't know. But for me, it's been a game changer. As somebody who does visual art as well, I feel like I understand colors now. In fact, just earlier today, I was out on a boat and I was thinking, man, I should have brought the glasses, because when you're out on the ocean, there's so much red, or out on the water, I should say, there's so much red in buoys and, you know, just signage and things like that, that's supposed to stand out. Like, it's emergency colors. It's like drawing your attention. And I happen to have a bag of Doritos, which are famously bright red, orangey red. And I was looking at them and they were just with the glasses on, and they were fluorescent, you know, out in this direct sunlight. The bag was literally glowing in my hand. I'm like, wow, okay. I take the glasses off and again, it switches to, you know, what I'd normally see as red, but by comparison, suddenly it feels much more like a muted sort of maroon or brown. And it doesn't jump off the shelf. You know, candy wrappers are a really good way of experiencing it, because the colors are designed to be exploding off the shelves, because when everybody's competing for your attention on the rack, obviously using the most vivid and bright color palettes are the things that are going to draw particularly a kid's attention, right? So I'm looking at Doritos and I'm like, I see now why they're this color. Whereas before it was just like they just picked a color, matches the vibe, you know? And so without the glasses, I wouldn't understand how that works. But either way, what I'm gonna do today, I'm not gonna try these on just yet, because I don't think I'm in a good environment for it. If you're going to get a pair of Enchroma, have a really good think about where you have your initial test. If you're like me and you're a Pro 10, you struggle with reds, find somewhere where it's got a lot of primary red colors. Fire engines, surf life-saving signage, all that sort of stuff is really vivid. As much as you'll notice differences in, say, for example, you're looking at a tree line or something like that, when you put the glasses on, adding that mid-rangey kind of red that you're missing from that spectrum adds so much more life and depth, just natural tone, that you'll notice that, right? Take the glasses off and again, all of a sudden all of that woodland and all that brush or whatever, it just looks dead and lifeless and flat. Put it back on, that mid-rangey red comes through. That's where all of the definition is really, right? And so suddenly things look different. Make sure you're in an environment where you're going to see that, as well as have some things like maybe candy bars and stuff. Enchroma does supply you with balloons that are tuned perfectly for that very thing, where you'll have a blue and a purple balloon that will look roughly the same to your natural vision. When you wear the glasses, you can instantly tell them apart. Like, that's the whole key, right? But make sure you set it up so you're not setting yourself up for failure by having your experience somewhere where there's probably not going to see much of a difference. I honestly think that's a lot of people's initial issues. It might have been mine, actually, because I tried mine on in my backyard, and thinking back now, there wasn't really anything there that would pop under the glasses, you know. Anyway, so what I'm going to do today, I'm not going to try these on. I'm just going to give you a basic quick unboxing demonstrating what you get. I want to find somewhere. I'm on holidays right now, and there's plenty of avenues where I can do it, but I'll just take these glasses with me, compare them on location, but I didn't want to do a full unboxing somewhere out there in the world. So let's take a look. This is the box you get. Mine, as you can see, there's the labeling there. Maybe someone from Enchroma, if you see this, you can let me know what those codes mean. But these are outdoor Pro-Tan, California black frames, PT for Pro-Tan, I'd imagine. And yeah, so let's jump in and have a quick look. And let's see. I mean, it's going to be the same experience with any of these. If you've seen one of my other unboxings, maybe skip ahead to where I actually test the glasses out. But obviously, you get a nice case. I always put mine back in the case, and they've lasted several years now, and they look really good. Like I said, you get colorful balloons, which I do recommend you use because they're tuned beautifully to interact with the glasses in a way that will make you see what you should be noticing. That's a little glasses bag, which doubles as a polishing cloth. And again, beautiful colors to sort of demonstrate what you're seeing, something else to look at that's pretty. And also just a polishing cloth that you can throw in the case as well. It's a microfiber cloth, works really well. Let's take a look. And that's them. Okay, that's your zip up case. It's a hard case, it's a little bit squishy, but it's definitely enough to protect your glasses. And comparing the frames to my current frames, they're exactly the same. Yeah, nothing's changed there. Yeah, they just look newer, to be honest. Yeah, so I'll put these away in the case and take them with me on location and try to find somewhere that I'm really going to notice the difference. Inside the box, you'll see some QR codes and things like that. That'll give you access to more information getting started, things of that nature. In there, you got some QR codes. And here are some instructions, which I definitely guarantee you should look at, because again, if you don't follow these instructions, you might be setting yourself up for failure and you'll have a bad experience. And really, sometimes, like for me particularly, initially when I got the glasses, it did take time for me to get the full effect. Maybe I was overwhelmed, maybe I just wasn't in a good location, but definitely, like nowadays, I can just throw these on and immediately experience the effect that I'm supposed to. Things are popping out here, the balloons, like the orange particularly is way more vibrant. The red really stands out as being red. And that's something actually that's important to note too. I'd heard criticism of people saying, you know, watching some of the unboxing videos and saying, all of a sudden this kid's being able to say, oh, that's purple and that's green. And they're like, well, how do you know if you've never seen those colors? I take exception to that because as someone who's been colorblind my whole life, like anyone is, I've always been capable of, under certain conditions with certain shades, being able to determine purple from blue. It's not always the case. It depends on the shades, depends on how close they are. It depends on how much red is in that purple. Putting the glasses on, bringing out that red to its full potential that's mixed with the blue to make the purple, suddenly there's a vast difference, right? It's not as difficult for me to say, that doesn't look like blue anymore, that's purple. Where you do run into problems though is you also don't know what you don't know. So a lot of times in the beginning, I was confusing pink with purple. I would ask my partner and say, wow, is that purple? And she'd be like, no, that's really pink. And so you still have to learn colors, but the ones that are primary or secondary that are very vivid in that spectrum, in that section of the spectrum, you'll definitely be able to tell them apart more easily. You still just might need to learn a little bit about your colors. And that happens over time. And again, I'm still, every now and then I point at something and ask my partner, is that like an orangey terracotta or is it something else? Because you know, you're never 100% certain. It takes years to sort of redevelop the way you see things. But yeah, that's one thing that I wanted to point out specifically about people's experiences. You as a colorblind person, if your experience is anything like mine, you will definitely be able to distinguish colors. I can definitely distinguish greens from browns if it's the right shades. Sometimes though, there's browns that look like, say, a leaf green, and that gets confusing. Sometimes, you know, I mean, there's a whole host of examples where there's things that seem similar, but with the right combination of tone and hue, you've always been able to see those colors, just not the way another person sees them. You see them enough to be able to differentiate them, is what I'm getting at. So take that how you will. That's my take on that. Yeah, but anyway, let's go. We'll get out on location and we'll check out what these babies can really do. All right, so here I am. I found probably the best location I could find to demonstrate the glasses like as a first try. So these are my original SP lenses, as I mentioned earlier, and I'm looking around and obviously I'm seeing color the way I'm supposed to, I suppose. So obviously I can see the ground here is like a red hue, and this thing up here is red. This is kind of like an orangey vibe here. Over by these chairs, there's some red in there as well. And I mean, red for me is the main issue, as a strong Pro-10. You know, but also pretty much everything in my vision skews towards yellow. Greens and things like that are affected, browns obviously as well. Yeah, but as I said, I'm used to these now. They pretty much correct that to a degree. And so, yeah, fundamentally looking through these glasses, I mean, I'm very happy with the result. So like, as an example, if I take these off, all of a sudden this ground area here, I mean, if somebody asked me, I would say it's like a pale beige or a green, like a pale green. This thing here looks like a bright green. This like T-shaped thing I'm pointing at right there. The wheel on top of that thing, I would say it's probably some sort of a dark yellow, you know, so these are definitely doing the job. Like I put them on, all of a sudden everything snaps into perspective and it makes sense. So I'm going to try on the new glasses for the first time and see, is there a 35% difference? It does, to be fair, it does say up to 35%. But that remains to be seen, I suppose, you know. So let's chuck these ones on. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, color shift wise, I don't see a lot of difference. However, the one thing I am noticing, which is actually pretty striking between the two, is everything is lighter. Like as far as when I put on the original glasses, everything gets dramatically darker. The tones shift to a darker tone that is actually, now that I look at it, a little bit unnatural compared to what I see with my real eyes. The colors are corrected, but they're darker. When I put on the new lenses, the tonal shift is much more subtle. So the colors turn to the right colors, but they don't change value, right? They don't, I guess that's the right word for it. They don't become darkened. And the other thing that's immediately obvious when looking at the white lines through here, when I have the original glasses on, there's definitely a red shift there. There's like a pale red sort of wash over anything that's white, like the white poles over here particularly. Like that kind of takes on almost like a very, very pale pink hue. But when I put on the new glasses, that's corrected. It just looks like a white post. In fact, it looks exactly the same, except with some of the brightness taken away by virtue of the fact that they're sunglasses. So yeah, definitely works. And there definitely is an improvement. Yeah, it's almost like the actual sunglass effect is equally as good. Like the glare and stuff like that's minimized. But yeah, that shift towards a corrected white is definitely noticeable. That's really interesting. One of the things that I find really interesting is the way that they affect the colors in the environment. Like it's one thing to look at primary colors and watch them shift. And that's kind of like I guess the party trick of the glasses. But what's more super interesting is looking at the way that they shift the environmental aspect of colors. Like for example, looking at grass, right? If I take my glasses off, it actually, by comparison, the grass looks kind of yellow and dried out and dead. But when I put the glasses on, suddenly those mid-range sort of reds come back into the green, and it suddenly looks like a richer green, and you can see more depth of color throughout like the vista of green. And same with like trees and stuff like that. Along the tree line, you'll notice more richness in the leaves and things like that. With the old ones, everything does look darker and richer with them on. Now let's try these ones. It's largely the same. I think, although again, it doesn't seem to darken the vision as much. So I guess there's more clarity as a pair of glasses, which is good. And I think they've done that without affecting the color correction, which is interesting. So they've brightened everything up. It doesn't seem as taxing on your eyes because your eyes aren't adjusting to the dynamic range of the lenses having a darkening effect. Your eyes have to physically brighten what you're looking at. So I guess it'd probably be more comfortable on the eyes too. But yeah, my verdict, if you're thinking about getting Enchroma glasses, honestly, they've never been better. This is the best they've been, which is great. It means you're jumping in with the best possible outcome. Not that I had any complaints before, but definitely there was some consideration, like with the white shifting to red, the white balance. What tends to happen, and this is all in the literature, is that that's part of the design, and after a while your eyes adjust, and eventually you stop seeing that red cast in the whites. Your eyes adjust to a new white balance, and eventually everything goes to normal. But I guess with the new glasses, that's not as much of a struggle. It just works right out of the bat. And if there is any subtle like tinting of the whites, then you will adjust to that also. But that subtle tinting is not only affecting the white, it's affecting the balance of the entire vista, right? And so any way that they can correct that balancing point of where 0 is for white, then it affects the range of color for everything else. So they're definitely better. Getting back to what I was saying, if you already have a pair of Enchromas and you're just wanting to upgrade just to get the new experience, that really depends on you and your budget, to be honest. I think you probably, if you're like me and you get good results out of, like, say, for example, I'm a strong pro tan, and my SP lenses, they do exactly as advertised. They work really, really well. Would I spend that much money to upgrade just out of pocket for the experience? I don't know. It really depends. Color vision is an interesting thing. I think for someone like me who's interested in this topic, and I'm a visual artist, and color is kind of important in my day to day, it might be worth it. Because I'm kind of a bit of a color like enthusiast, I suppose, But if you're just somebody who knows you've been colorblind your whole life and it's not that, big a deal to you, and you just want to try the glasses as like a gimmicky thing, then, a lot of times you're probably going to be dissatisfied with the purchase anyway, because you'll put them on, you go, okay, everything looks a little bit richer and a little bit greener and stuff like that, and a little bit redder or whatever, but that doesn't bother me. Then it's going to be one of those things, right? Where it's contingent on your perception of value for money. But yeah, my verdict, if you're thinking about getting Enchroma glasses, honestly, they've never been better. This is the best they've been, which is great. It means you're jumping in with the best possible outcome. Not that I had any complaints before, but definitely there was some consideration, like with the white shifting to red, the white balance. What tends to happen, and this is all in the literature, is that that's part of the design, and after a while your eyes adjust, and eventually you stop seeing that red cast in the whites. Your eyes adjust to a new white balance, and eventually everything goes to normal. But I guess with the new glasses, that's not as much of a struggle. It just works right out of the bat. And if there is any subtle like tinting of the whites, then you will adjust to that also. But that subtle tinting is not only affecting the white, it's affecting the balance of the entire vista, right? And so any way that they can correct that balancing point of where 0 is for white, then it affects the range of color for everything else. So they're definitely better. Getting back to what I was saying, if you already have a pair of Enchromas and you're just wanting to upgrade just to get the new experience, that really depends on you and your budget, to be honest. I think you probably, if you're like me and you get good results out of, like, say, for example, I'm a strong pro tan, and my SP lenses, they do exactly as advertised. They work really, really well. Would I spend that much money to upgrade just out of pocket for the experience? I don't know. It really depends. Color vision is an interesting thing. I think for someone like me who's interested in this topic, and I'm a visual artist, and color is kind of important in my day to day, it might be worth it, because I'm kind of a bit of a color like enthusiast, I suppose. But if you're just somebody who knows you've been colorblind your whole life and it's not that big a deal to you, and you just want to try the glasses as like a gimmicky thing, then a lot of times you're probably going to be dissatisfied with the purchase anyway, because you'll put them on, you go, okay, everything looks a little bit richer and a little bit greener and stuff like that, and a little bit redder or whatever, but that doesn't bother me. Then it's going to be one of those things, right, where it's contingent on your perception of value for money. So I thought I'd just jump in here real quick. Hopefully the wind's not too bad. When I did my initial reaction, it was kind of early in the morning. It was about 7 a.m. And now that I'm walking around in sort of a much more lush environment, and it's around midday, the glasses really come into their own, actually. I'm actually really stunned with the difference. That there's just so much more richness and contrast in the mid-range of all of the colors, like the greens and browns. And along here through the grass here, it just looks really rich. And again, when I take them off, it just all drops back to like a yellowy sort of hue. But yeah, I mean, it's always been said that Enchroma works best in, broad daylight. And it's absolutely true. As sunglasses themselves, they're really beautifully contrasty, but without diminishing the dynamic range, like the brightness. So everything looks really sharp and vividly clear. I find I'm not squinting. And it is bright as hell out here today. Probably should have done a reaction sort of more around midday. It really does make a huge difference. And just walking through that sort of area back there, with all of the colors of all the different foliage and stuff like that, it really does make a huge difference. So maybe that's a tip. If you're going to try a pair, make sure it is like a vivid sort of day, like bright sunlight, because that's how you're going to get the biggest effect. Like just driving all the way over here in the car and stuff like that, I was like, yeah, they're really good. But when I got out and started walking around, it's a whole different world. I just wanted to say one more thing as well, is that, like, looking at all these rocks through here, there's so much sort of rich color and stuff in those, a lot of texture, a lot of contrast. But now I'm really noticing how much these new lenses don't affect the white balance. The white balance has shifted back to being really natural. You can see it in the white caps on the waves. It looks just really real, and again, with my old SP lenses, it never bothered me as much. But now looking at things like, little patches of white on the rocks and the white caps, you can see how much of a difference it makes. Like, even just looking across the bay, you won't be able to see it, but there's like a little thing out there, like a little red, which I'm able to see, like a boat signage thing, and it's got a little white post, and the white stands out dramatically against the environment, in a way that I probably wouldn't have noticed before, because it would have had a slightly muddied sort of red tinge to it. Not nearly as much as a normal sighted person would experience it, but yeah, these are really seeing the benefit of them now. Red, white. Very red, very white. Originally this morning, when I made the video, I sort of made a summary at the end about, whether or not you should upgrade if you already own them. I think if you've never had Enchroma glasses before and you want to try them, now's the best time. These lenses are amazing. They're kind of wish I'd done the reaction right now, but and I sort of said, look, if you're a color enthusiast and you already own some Enchromas and you want to experiment with the new lenses, then it's really up to you whether or not it's worth it, value for money wise. Because we all know that they're not super cheap glasses. So, it really depends on how much you want to lean into your color vision. For some people, it's not a massive deal. some people like me, it's important and it's kind of almost a hobby. You know, color blindness and color blindness education is something I take pretty seriously. So, you know, for someone like me, I would definitely upgrade. And I said this morning that if, you know, you're kind of 50-50 and you have glasses and you don't need to upgrade them right now, then, you know, maybe wait until your glasses, you lose them or they break or something like that, and it's worth getting a new pair. But having experienced them again sort of in the middle of the day, I'm sort of leaning way more towards it's worth the upgrade. Yeah, it's definitely something magical going on here. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed that unboxing and reaction. If you want to know any more information about Enchroma, I've got a lot of other videos about it because, as I said, I'm an enthusiast. I've had Enchroma ads on my reaction videos for a couple of years now. And to be honest, it's not for the money. Believe me when I say I have not made a lot of money by doing that. I could easily have used other sponsors that would have generated some revenue. But to me, I'm all about supporting products I believe in and that I use. Putting grandstanding some pay-to-play mobile game is not where I'm at, right? I like these glasses. When somebody buys a pair, I make very little money. And to be honest, they don't buy them that often. It's a small demographic. You know, only one in 6 guys is colorblind, and not all of them are going to want to drop the kind of money that Enchromas cost just to see how the world looks. That said, I'm not putting in an affiliate link on this video because I want it to stand on its own. I want people to judge, and I've seen a little bit of negative publicity for Enchroma on forums and stuff like that. People calling them out. I don't know whether or not it's people who've tried them and didn't have a good experience, or it's people who are just regurgitating stuff that they've seen online. But to me, it's really disappointing because what it's doing is potentially costing you the opportunity to see the world the way I'm looking at it right now. And that bums me out, you know. So there'll be no affiliate link on this video because it's worth more to me that people get to experience what these can do and hopefully have a great outcome than for me to make 20 bucks if somebody buys a pair of glasses. But anyway, that's it. Thanks again for checking in. I hope you enjoy the video and I hope you get something out of it. I hope this is the video that sways you into just taking a gamble and checking them out. Thanks for checking in. I'll catch you on the next one.